and you'd be amazed at how many things you just assume or infer, even just in your day-to-day life,
Oh yeah.
where it's like, oh, my kid had a tantrum. He or she must be tired, right? And it's like, well, do you know that they're tired? Have you asked them that they're tired, right? Are you curious to learn or to know rather than, just assuming something? And so, yeah, I think curiosity is something that's probably underappreciated, but can be really powerful when used in the right way.
The sound of that tractor means it's time for us to get to work. You're listening to the Give Us the Dirt podcast powered by Hoopaugh Grading Company. My name is Brandon, and I am your host. Today, we've got a special guest with us. We're going to uncover the untold stories and expert insights from the world of staffing, recruitment, and talent acquisition. We're honored to welcome Thomas Haun to the show. Thomas brings a wealth of experience to the table, having navigated various roles across different sectors of the industry. A graduate of Harvard Business School with an MBA under his belt, he spent nearly 4 years as Executive VP at Precision Hawk, followed by a successful tenure as COO at Turner Mining Group. Thomas has honed his experience in operations, sales, marketing, strategy, and finance, and his journey has now led him to his current role as president of Turner Staffing Group, where he continues to drive innovation and excellence. His transition to Turner Staffing Group in June of 2022 marked a pivotal moment in his career where he now spearheads initiatives in new business creation and strategic direction. Thomas, welcome to the podcast.
I don't even know where you got that intro, but that was a mouthful.
You like that,
I'm
huh?
happy to be here.
That needs to be on your LinkedIn profile right there. I'm gonna send you a copy of it.
I think it needs to be slimmed down quite a bit, but I'm sure Sarah sent it over, and she's awesome.
So, you know what?
Happy to be here.
You could have just gone with Harvard Business School MBA right there. I was going to say, I don't remember seeing you in any of the classes there, Thomas.
Yeah. I was probably skipping and playing golf and stuff. So.
As was I. Well, hey, welcome. We're excited to talk to you. I've got a special connection to the mining industry. Actually, in the previous life, spent time with Martin Marietta, spent about 20 years working there. So love the industry, love what you guys are doing. Excited to dig in and hear more about not just Turner Mining Group, but especially what you're doing with Turner Staffing Group. That's pretty exciting.
Well, oh yeah. I mean, it's all one big family here at Turner. And we love the folks at Martin, do a lot of work for them and have done a lot of work for them. And they're great over there. So shout out to those folks. But yeah, no, the Turner Mining side and the Turner Staffing side, it is two different companies, but in a lot of ways, we share the same office. We share a lot of the same staff. We're just trying to get people to work every day. So yeah,
I think it's really cool what you guys are doing. I can't wait to get into it. I want to start with your story, though. Talk to us a little bit about your personal story and how your background and your journey to Turner.
Yeah, pre Turner Mining, I had not been overly exposed to the mining industry. Everything was tangential. I grew up in and around construction, so in the DC area, families work for different contractors, et cetera. And my kind of career path has been meandering, some could say. Probably the one consistent through line is that I really, really, really enjoy kind of core industries. So whether that's manufacturing or defense or agriculture, spent some time there, obviously construction, and now mining. It's cool. I like seeing kind of where things come from. We take for granted everything that's around us all the time, right? And there's that old saying, if it isn't grown, it's mined, is the way they say it in the mining industry. And in agriculture, they say, if it isn't mined, it's grown. So I've been on both sides of that one, which is really cool.
I love that. You talked about growing up in around construction. What kind of construction?
All types of vertical construction in and around the DC area. Not as much heavy civil, mostly like kind of large buildings in the city. It's cool to drive, to different places and say, oh yeah, I helped make that one happen. So it's a nice thing to be able to actually feel, touch, and kind of see your work, which is really cool.
And I love the fascination too with what, as you call it, core industries. There is something there. There's something tangible and something nostalgic about being a part of industries like that. That you can actually see the progress. You can see things being created, dirt being moved, things being built. Um, I love that. Did you know growing up that that was what you wanted to do?
Um, Not probably not exactly. I would say I knew that I liked that tangible kind of feel. Um, but I'm also just a curious person. And so, you know, whether that was my time in defense, where you get to really learn about how we keep our nation safe, or in agriculture, where you really start to understand where your food comes from and really the amazing work that farmers do every day. Um, yeah, I was probably most interested in the people side of it. If I was to say what kind of was my passion from the jump, was probably like being on really good teams of folks. Um, so obviously doing that now on the staffing side is like a full circle thing. But everybody kind of tends to talk about technology and where things are going. We at Turner really focus on the people side of it, and it's where we've kind of specialized. And to me, that's where, when I get up out of bed every morning and I'm kind of pumped for the day, it's like, yeah, I'm going to get to interact with this awesome group of folks. So that's probably the thing that is the thing that I knew from the beginning.
The people part of this, and we're going to dive into that because I know you guys have found a unique way to start addressing some of the people issues that the industry is having. So I'm excited to hear what you've got to share with us about that. But you just dropped a word on us that I don't think we hear often enough, and that is curious. Be the
Yeah.
just the gift and the skill of curiosity. I'm a huge Ted Lasso fan. You watch Ted Lasso?
Oh yeah, love Ted
You probably
Lasso.
remember the line. He said, don't be judgmental, be curious. Press
Hmm.
into it. If you were curious, you'd understand the why behind it. You'd understand what's going on. And I don't think we're curious enough. I don't think people are curious enough. We assume and we just go with the flow. But I love that word.
Yeah, we both Keaton and I have been through a leadership development program called Stake, and it's run out of Dallas. Awesome program. A couple things they always talk about. One of them is don't be a knower, be a learner, which is kind of the Ted Lasso thing, just put maybe in a different way. And then the other tool they give you is what's called a ladder of inference. And you'd be amazed at how many things you just assume or infer, even just in your day to day life,
Oh yeah.
where it's like, oh, my kid had a tantrum. He or she must be tired, right? And it's like, well, do you know that they're tired? Have you asked them that they're tired, right? Are you curious to learn or to know rather than, just assuming something? And so, um, yeah, I think curiosity is something that's probably underappreciated, but can be really powerful when used in the right way.
I agree. And what a great skill as a leader to be able to learn and to adopt into your style is just press in. If you really want to know what's going on, it's probably two or three questions away.
Yes, yes. It's never the first one, right? Most people, you know, they want to be guarded in some way, shape, or form, and that's fine. And so you got to really take the time to actually build and establish some trust with somebody before you can really press into those questions. But I think once you've done that, you're really doing your team and really the whole organization a disservice if you're not pressing in, because that's oftentimes where kind of those little nuggets of truth really lie. And those can be a really powerful way to move things forward when oftentimes you might feel like you kind of are in a rut and doing the same thing over and over.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, so Thomas, talk to us about Turner Mining Group. I want to spend a little
Yeah.
bit of time there, and then we're going to move over to the staffing group. But this started as Turner Mining Group.
Yeah, so Keaton started the company in 2017. Keaton Turner, for those who don't know, um, and I joined the company, pretty early days in 2018. We had won a couple contracts. Where we're still a pretty small firm. I had been introduced to Keaton, and we both had a similar passion to what I talked about around the people side. And once I met him, I knew he was my brother from another mother. So it was kind of easy after that.
So you guys didn't know each
Joined,
other before. I mean, this was, you
didn't
got,
know each other previous. Yeah, we got introduced, and we've been pretty well inseparable since. So yeah, it's a fun story. But yeah, on the Turner Mining side, Keaton has always said we're a people company. We just happen to do mining. And I think that's a really good approach. It's probably what sold me the most on joining the firm in the early days, because when it's early, there's a lot of mess to clean up and a lot of things you got to go build and you got to go do. And I like that kind of stuff. I like the blank sheet of paper. Again, it's probably back to the curiosity thing. It's like, hey, let's see how this would work. But yeah, got introduced to Keaton. We then went on a tear in 2018, 2019, and even through the beginnings of COVID in 2020. Grew the company a tremendous amount, hired a lot of people, and we got really good at that. When you might be supporting a company, you mentioned Martin Marietta, or others in the space, and it's like, hey, we really like what you're doing. Can you come do that 3 more times at the same time? And it's like, we can figure it out. So that's been a lot of fun. And the backstory between kind of how that converted to Turner Staffing is, we're having all this success hiring people and attracting people to our company, that some other kind of, I'll say, friends in the industry started to ask us kind of quietly, hey, can you help us on the people side? And, if it was a partnership that we wanted to continue to progress, we obviously said, sure, happy to help. And we did that for a couple of years, kind of coming out of COVID. And then, at a certain point it becomes, hey, why don't we actually do this and actually really kind of put forth the effort to really build out a firm that can support a lot of different companies. And so we've been in build mode since mid 22. It's crazy to think that we're like a little more than a year and a half in already. And it's been wild. We have people from, and this is both on Turner Mining and Turner Staffing, because again, we very much think of them. Yes, they're 2 companies technically, but we very much kind of manage them and think of them collectively. And we've got folks from Alaska to Florida, and it's crazy
no
to think
kidding.
about that. Yeah, so it's wild. And again, some of that is Turner Mining, some of that's Turner Staffing. We tend to keep a map, and I don't have one like handy, where we kind of like color in the states where we have folks, and that's been a really cool thing to see, like, all these states get filled in. We're not all the way to 50. But it's definitely something we want to make sure we make happen while Keaton and I are still doing this.
What a cool story. And hats off to you and Keaton as well for identifying a space to press into and seeing that need. Where, it sounds like the original vision of this thing was not staffing. It wasn't
No,
that piece of it.
and Turner Mining, is still doing a ton of mining contracting across the United States. I don't think we ever set out to build a staffing firm. I think what we set out to do was realize that the people challenge is one of the biggest challenges both the mining and the construction space have. And as much as people talk about technology and autonomy and all these things, which are great, and they are coming and they will have an impact, it still doesn't remove the person most of the time. And in the few times that it might remove the person, they're probably going to get redeployed to do something even higher value.
Mm-hmm.
And so the talent challenge doesn't go away. And when the talent challenge doesn't go away, okay, we need to start from the beginning focusing on the talent challenge, even if it was just for Turner Mining operations. And so as COO at that time, that was really my focus, right? And I'll tell a quick little funny story that I think kind of will make this really poignant. So Keaton has a business partner, Gant. Keaton, Gant, and I sat down one day over beers. We're not on a podcast, but over beers. And we chatted about, hey, look, what are kind of like the key things we need to really get Turner Mining Group up off the ground and really running and humming. And through a long conversation, it really focused on three things. We needed to make sure we had the financing available to go buy whatever equipment we needed to go acquire. We needed to make sure we had the right styles of projects and work that we knew we could perform and perform effectively. And then we needed to make sure we had the talent to actually perform that work. And so each of us signed up for a promise to each other. Gant signed up for, hey, and Gant's very, very good at creating financing packages and figuring out ways to make kind of deals come together. Keaton is very, very good at understanding the work we do, still to this day, really gifted at it, and know what kind of partner companies we want to go work for. And then between my background and then what I was committing to, I was going to make sure that we had the talent side handled. And so when we made those promises, we started hiring recruiters and really starting to kind of get things going. Gant did a ton with regards to financing relationships, and Keaton started to build really what Turner Mining's reputation was from an industry perspective on the work we could go do. And so when you think about that, that last promise really turned into something we never thought it could be between the three of us. Mm-hmm. And we've had such an amount of success on that third promise that it's allowed us to really kind of create this other entity and really start to help on the talent side well beyond the four walls of Turner.
And that's been in a very short time. I mean, you're only talking about 6, almost 7 years.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think about.
What is the scope? What's the size of Turner Mining Group today? What does it look like?
Yeah, between Turner Mining and Turner Staffing, we probably have 500 to 600 employees. They're, again, spread all over. We have some areas where we have like larger concentrations. On the mining side, we have larger concentrations in Alaska, Nevada, and Arizona, which shouldn't really surprise anybody. Those are three of the biggest mining states in the U.S. from a kind of quantity perspective. But then, again, we have folks all over the country who are supporting construction firms, especially on the staffing side, which has really been a lot of fun to kind of see. And construction wasn't where we started by any stretch, but very similar skill sets, very similar challenge on the labor side and the talent side. And so we, decided that was something we were going to help and offer. And then kind of the other thing that I like to think about is how many applications are we getting? So when you talk about like, okay, what's the scale of Turner? I like to think about applications because we will offer not just staffing our own personnel, but if somebody needed help attracting, kind of like from a recruiting perspective, attracting people into their company, we also offer that ability for them to kind of take advantage of that. And we had, I had the exact number at some point in time, but I know we had over 11,000 candidates apply. These are U.S. citizen or U.S. right to work individuals apply to join Turner, either Turner Mining or Turner Staffing last year.
11,000?
Yeah. So that's like one person every 45 minutes. So when we start this podcast, we'll get an app. And when we
goodness,
finish,
Thomas, how in the world?
Yeah.
That's incredible.
It's wild. And we are very proud of that. Obviously, we can't take all of those people and put them to work inside the four walls of Turner. A lot of these individuals are looking to break into the industry. And they might view us as a way to do that. But yeah, I'm really proud of that. And that's something that has continued to grow. I think that was our 2023 number. Our 2022 number, I think, was somewhere around like 7,500. And so, we want to keep growing that number because we know the challenge that lies ahead. Eventually, I'd love to be partnered with so many firms that we're taking all those folks and putting them to work. But yeah, we'll take our bite of that apple now, and just make sure that we're continuing to attract the right style of talent that
So
our
cool.
industry needs.
Yeah, it's so cool. And you have identified, I love how you said it, that we are a people company that do mining, and I
Yep.
think all of us should say that. We're a people
Oh
company that
yeah.
does grading work. That's
Exactly.
the most important factor in the business. It's the people and identifying the talent, recruiting the talent, and developing the talent. I
Yep. And
listened to Oh, go
you
ahead.
guys do a good job of that. I mean, I think when I think about what y'all are doing, it's I think you are likely continuing to walk down a very similar path, right? I don't think, we're pretty open with our playbook. And so if we want to get into that, I'm happy to talk through like how we go about
Oh
trying
yeah.
to
Yeah,
attract
we're going to
that
make
number
you
of
give us the
folks.
dirt on your
Okay,
playbook.
okay. But I mean, Keith and I are very open about that. I think each firm really needs to think about what it's heading towards. And that's why I say what y'all are doing, I do see is in a very similar vein. And likely, y'all are probably attracting an outsized amount of talent compared to others because of it, which kudos to you. And so it's not that people can't go and kind of try to replicate what we're doing. Now, a lot of times we consult with folks and try to help them figure out how they can do it. Um, but I think the key is like there is no silver bullet to this. I talk about us getting 11,000 change applicants. It That's great, but that isn't even putting a dent in what we need, right? I read a study, I think it came out in 22 by this AGC, the Association of General Contractors, and it talked about like civil engineers. I think it was on the order of magnitude of needing to hire 250,000 net new civil engineers in the
Just to
next
keep up.
decade, just to keep up in the
Yeah.
next decade. So that's 25,000 civil engineers a year. Even if all 11,000 of our applicants are civil engineers, which clearly they were not, that still doesn't even actually swallow the need. And so it's why we oftentimes talk about partnerships and doing kind of trying to make sure that there's a multi-pronged approach, because different individuals are going to intersect these opportunities in different ways. And we want to be supporting our firms, but they also need to be doing just as much work on the talent side, as we are, even as a staffing company.
Yeah, and thank you for the kind words you said about it. We're still trying to figure this out every day. We learn a little bit more about it, but one of the things that I do think has helped us, and what it sounds like is helping you too, is that we are not just looking for people that are already in the business. We're
No,
looking for people
definitely
that
not.
are wanting to get into the business and show them that this is a great career. It's a great industry. They can thrive. They can make good money. They can enjoy, they can work in great equipment and have the access to all the fancy technology. We're showing them that, but I think that's the difference. Everybody is out trying to find talent, but you
Oh yeah.
can't. You had a quote, I think that summed it up pretty good. This was in the Equipment World magazine. Yes, it
Okay.
said, right now we're recycling old habits from company to company.
Yep.
And
That was
how
with
true is
Jordan.
that? Yeah, we've got
Yeah.
to find new talent. We've got to go out and we've got to become scouts.
We
Uh,
have to. I mean, if you think about any problem, if we're not out kind of in front of it, and when you think of it from a macro challenge, we have to attract new people. If we're not out in front of even our own needs, well, shame on us. Then we're just going to
mhm.
be reactive and not proactive, right? And so I remember that interview with Jordan, who wrote that column for Equipment World, and I give her a ton of credit too. She, from a media side, and there are others who are also doing this, are really trying to push in the ways they can help. because those media firms obviously need a thriving industry sitting behind it, right, to keep that media being both engaging and frankly even relevant, right? And so, you know, even the media firms stepping up and starting podcasts and doing different initiatives to try to make sure that we're attracting the right kind of next gen and I'll call it new workforce that we need. I give them a ton of credit, and Jordan's one of probably a handful that I think have pushed on that as much as anybody.
Yeah. No, it's going to take all of us and singing the same song and making sure that we are thinking about the industry as a whole in order to move that
Yes.
needle. I was
Yes.
listen. You guys have a podcast too. It's called Turner Mining Live,
Yeah.
and I listened to. I think it was right about the time that you announced that you were starting
Okay.
Turner Staffing Group, and you and Keaton were on the podcast, and you guys have a lot of fun on it. I enjoyed listening to your
Oh yeah.
podcast. Matter of fact, I came up. There's a new. If you're looking for a new drinking game, y'all should listen to
Okay.
that podcast. And every time one of you says the word talent, you have to drink a shot.
You would be hammered if you had
The
no
word
fun.
talent, but that's where it's at. That's the secret. It's about the talent, identifying the talent, recruiting the talent, and developing the talent. And you
You
figured
have
out
to.
how to do that
Yeah,
somehow.
you have to. We don't. It's funny. I never thought about turning that into a drinking game. I mean, you would
Oh
be
yeah,
toasted
yeah,
at the end. But I think I do think there's a reason why we say that word that much, right? Right? It's because we know that we can't ever lose focus from that.
right.
I joke around with our recruiters on our team about they're like, oh man, I talked to 50 people today. And I'm like, okay, well, how many of them like have you built a real relationship with? And they're like, oh, let's say 20 of them. I'm like, okay, do you think you could call those 20, if you had an opportunity that you felt fit them? And they're like, oh yeah, for sure. I'm like, great, love that. Because we use the word talent to cover off on a lot of things, right? Obviously, there's the person's skills and abilities. But when we think of talent, we're thinking about actually the whole human.
Mm-hmm.
And that has a lot to do with their values, their priorities, their personal interests that go beyond their professional interests. And when we use the word talent, we're using it in a very kind of all-encompassing way. What we're really saying is humans. It would probably be odd to say the word humans all the times we say talent. But we think of it that way. And we've even architected our core values, both at Turner Mining and Turner Staffing. We actually share the same core values around the human being. And it has helped us reinforce how much we care about the individual. And so we have 4 of them. We like to keep them straight and to the point. And so we always say you need to have a heart for people, right? Thinking about the heart of a human. You need to have an eye for safety, thinking about how much, we need to look out for each other. You need to have a mind for innovation, right? Can't keep doing the same thing over and over again. That's not going to get us anywhere. And then you need to have an attitude for excellence. And so we are very clear on our core values, and we do a really good job of focusing them all back around that human being. Because now to go back to the word talent, that's why we know it's our number one challenge. We know it's the industry's number one challenge, and we have to keep focusing on it in every way possible, even down to things like what are the core values of the company. And so, I really like that because that allows us to not just, I'll say, pay lip service to something, but we're actually living out how much we're focusing on a human, even all the way into listing our core values accordingly.
No, I like the approach. I like the concept of it. And that is a secret that every company in our industry is trying to unlock right now. Everybody wants talent. Everybody wants somebody that is going to have a heart for people, an eye for safety, mind for innovation, attitude for excellence. We're all
Oh yeah.
looking for that person. How do you recruit for that? How do you identify that? how do you
Yeah, I
interview
mean,
someone and search for, all right, values and a personal
it,
ethics
yeah,
and
fit and all of that. I think you got to get to know the person, right? We probably overstaff on recruiters in order to make sure they have enough capacity to really get to know people. Um, we just did a podcast, I don't know, probably middle of February. And in it, a new employee of ours was Keaton and my guest. In it, he told her what I thought was a really cool story. His first phone call with one of our recruiters was an hour and a half long, where our recruiter, his words, learned everything about him and his life. That to me is the only way you get there. Now, you got to build trust with that person early on in that phone call to then be able to dive all the way into the conversation that you need to have. But I think there is a really telling element of that where if you spend enough time with someone, even if it's just on the phone, you will actually really get to know them. Um, and I would give that as advice to any recruiter. Yes, you need to have enough quantity, and we can talk about how we do awareness and stuff like that. But I do think quality is key, and it was somewhat what I was referencing in those conversations that I have with recruiters. I'm not. Our company is not just focused on how many people did you talk to. Because if you talk to somebody for 2 minutes, I bet you didn't get very far. It's really how many people do you now know that you can actually call on if you feel like you have something that would be a great fit for them.
right.
And so that's where, yeah, it does take time to get to know people, but I'd rather get to know them on the front end than find out 6 months into them being on one of our sites, hey, this isn't the person we thought they were. And so they're probably not as good of a fit for us.
Yeah,
Or
it's so
maybe
hard.
we're not a good fit for them, right?
Yeah.
It very much goes in both directions. And so
Yeah, it's
we
so
want to kind
hard
of,
to get that to sniff that out in an interview. It's there's some things that you're just not going to know until you get together and you spend time. But you're right, trying to get to the bottom of it as quickly as you can during that interview process, but really evaluating the heart, soul, and mind of the person
yes, yes.
instead of the skill. And how in the world you I mean, that's great to get to know the person, to spend an hour and a half getting to know the person, but you got 11,000 applicants right
Yeah,
now. So
yeah.
surely you've developed some tricks to get to this quickly over the
Yeah,
last
I
couple.
think yeah, we're using a lot of tools, right? So we're trying to make our I'd rather have all of our recruiters spend all their time on the phone talking to people and let the tools support it so that they know who they need to talk to next about what, et cetera. So what you'll probably know, so I'm in our office here. What you'll probably notice is you're not hearing a lot of conversation. You're thinking, well, recruiters are on the phone all the time.
Right.
True, they are. All of our recruiters work remotely because I don't ever. I want them to be able to pick up the phone whenever they need to pick up the phone. I want them to be able to call whoever they need to call and have whatever conversation, which might be quite, you know, I'll say specific and potentially even intimate, right? Like, hey, I know, John, you told me that you were looking for this. I don't really think this is a good fit for you. And actually being willing to have that conversation and not having other people overhear that. We want to kind of respect that courtesy.
Hmm.
And so all of our recruiters work remote because they are literally on the phone all day, every day. Now you got to go find the right recruiters who want to do that. Right. So, I think it does take a certain style and a certain type who's like, look, I want to get to know people and talk to people. And then we'll let the tools make them efficient so that as soon as they hang up the phone, they know who they need to be talking to next and what they're talking about and making them as effective as possible. And that I think is on the company. You know, I think again, the recruiter's job is to really understand the person.
Yeah, that's our all of our jobs. We got to figure out how to get to know that person, understand what makes
Oh
them
yeah.
tick. Hey, I want to ask you this because this is got to be a challenge for you, and I want to understand how Turner Staffing Group navigates through this. I have a love. I'm going to be honest with you. I have a love-hate relationship with staffing agencies.
Oh yeah.
We've had some that have been incredible, right, and really took time to understand our needs, our culture, our voice, our pains, and they found someone that could come in and fill that void. And we've had great
Yep.
experiences. And then we've had the other side, right? We've had
Oh
the
yeah.
other side where, the person that they're representing is the greatest person in the world, can solve all the world's problems. They've never met them. They've never talked to
Yep.
them.
Yep.
And they've picked them off from somebody down the street
Yeah,
that we
exactly.
compete against every day. So
Yep.
I was trying to wrap my brain around it, and you have to walk. This is slippery slope for you, right? Because
Yeah.
a lot of the people that may be looking for opportunities within the mining industry could possibly be working for people that you're doing business with.
Yeah, we once we partner with somebody, we're not pulling people out
They're
of
off
that company,
limits.
right? No, that's exactly
Yeah.
right. So you are right to say, would Turner Staffing ever be able to serve all of construction and all of mining? No, um, and frankly, nor should we, for that matter. But that being said, it's actually less of a slippery slope than you think. And the reason why I say that is every single hiring decision, both from the company and from the talent, is very individualized. So, not that we necessarily want to take people from down the street and move them from company A to company B, although I'm sure it happens. Uh, what I would want to know is why is that person wanting to leave company A? What are they not doing that they could be doing to either keep that person satisfied or whatever that's making them want to look. And then company B, what is it that they have that that person is running towards, right? And so it's I agree that if you think of it like in the totality of it, it could be complicated and messy. But the reality is, whether it's any relationship you have, a friendship, your marriage, your relationship with your kids, you know, your relationship with the firm that you work, it's all very individualized.
Right.
Now, how do we protect and make sure that we're doing the right thing and really serving everyone in this process? Um, like I already told you, once you're a partner, you're a partner, and that really matters to us. We're big on, living our own values all the time, and so we talk about them focused on the human. Well, that's also focused on the human that's at that partner company, not just ours. Um, and then the other thing we do is we offer both recruiting and staffing. And so some firms don't really want a headhunter, right? Like kind of what you're talking about of they're just throwing people over the wall and seeing what sticks. They really want a partner on talent where we will staff someone. So we'll actually hire them. We're taking then the workers' comp risk and everything else that's associated with the employee themselves. And they're put to work at that partner company and they're managed by that partner's managers,
So that's a
right?
really
And
cool
so
model.
then
You guys, they're on your payroll. You're doing
they're
the
on our
training. You're
payroll.
doing, yep.
Exactly. And so that is a really interesting model where we now are allowing both the talent and the company to get to know each other over that period of time, right? Because we may say, hey, let's staff them for 6 months and see if you like them and see if they like you. It's almost no risk to the company because if they don't like the person, okay, maybe send me a different person, maybe, help me evaluate people better, right? However they want to do it. But it's very little risk to the firm itself. And it's also very little risk to the employee, the individual. And again, a lot of folks spend their time talking about the company side, and it's really important, and we got to make sure things work correctly. But we got to make sure this works for the person. And so giving them and I've used the word entry point before, but giving them an entry point so that they can now test and evaluate. Because maybe they won't take that full-time job because maybe they're a little hesitant. They don't know what they're getting into. They're, you know, they're cautious because some person wrote a bad Google review, which every company has. You know, whatever it is, they may want to kind of, walk before they run. And so I view it as our job on the Turner Staffing side to make sure that we're supporting both that individual's needs and the company's needs. And that's where you're right. We shouldn't do anything where we're, taking people from a company we're working with or anything like that. But also, we shouldn't be kind of the flip side of the bad staffing company example is where they're selling the talent on an opportunity that also doesn't really exist,
Right.
right? You gave it from the company side. We better not be doing it on either side because we will burn our reputation with firms. And more importantly, we will burn our reputation with talent that we're not actually giving them access to opportunities that are really good, solid opportunities for them.
Yeah, that's difficult. You're really representing both sides of that coin and making sure that
Have
it's the
to.
right fit. And yeah, thank you for walking me through that. And I know you guys are big fans of Aaron Witt, Bill Witt
I
team, and
love Aaron.
we love them
Aaron and
too.
Dan are great.
Oh, they're incredible, and they're doing some incredible things. And they've also identified the people problem and really pressing into that in a cool way. But I think
Yep.
they went down a similar path. And I
Yep.
think at some point realized, all right, hey, this, if we're in this staffing thing, it's really pulling from the people that we're trying to pull in on this training piece. And so I was
Yep.
curious as to how you and Keaton keep from throwing things at each other and that.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you found a way to do it and not only protect the ones that you're working for, but protect the people that you're trying to get placed as well.
Yes. And I think, yeah, I know BuildWith kind of has experimented with a lot of different things within their business. Obviously, Aaron is world class, and so is Dan, Dan Briscoe, for those who don't know. Both of them, I think, are really looking at the macro challenge of how they are going to make really the change that needs to happen across the industry. When you are doing that, it gets tougher when you're delivering solutions to some and not to others, right? And so I think what we're watching is them become much more of a platform company, right? Whether that's marketing, whether that's software, whether that's training, you could kind of think of those three things as platforms that the entire industry can have access to. That I think is a really good approach to a business from an outsider's perspective for BuildWit, right? Turner Mining and Turner Staffing, we are trying to solve the talent challenge, but we're trying to solve it for the people that we work with, right? We do not have the, I'll call it industry-wide scope that BuildWit does. And so I get why they had a challenge there. I also think, the fact that we are actually a contractor and operating every day does give us a little bit of an advantage with our own recruiters, right? They have been raised in how we do our own hiring, right? They aren't, working for a firm that might not have that experience and trying to support a company that really needs that, right? And so I do think there are a little, some differences there, both in scope and in kind of like, I'll call it specificity of process. But no, I love what Aaron and Dan are doing, and I can't wait to see what they continue to do. The other platform that I'll kind of make mention of that I think they're starting to push into, again, this is all outside observation, is around events. And I'm really pleased about that. One, we'll be helping BuildWit at the Dirt World Summit this coming November. But two, we need to create the right platforms. I'll keep using that word, or forums that everybody can access. And by doing not only the summit, but also these more regionally focused events, they're being a much more kind of like holistic provider of these opportunities versus, oh, we go to Con Expo every 3 years. It's like, that's great, But you know what? People need a lot of help in the in-between years between those
Right.
3 years.
Right.
And so if you can do training at an event, if you can provide them access to resources at an event, I think they're doing 4 or 5 events just this year, which is amazing. And so, being able to do that, I think, is a really powerful thing for our industry, and something that again, that's not Turner's business, right? But that's definitely, you can see that as a BuildWit business. And I think it's needed as a platform to help us from an industry perspective. So
I do
hats
too.
off to both Aaron and Dan.
Well, hats off to both of you. It's really cool, and it's cool to see the industry really starting to understand that we do have a people problem. We've got a talent problem. We've got to solve this, and we've got to solve it by collaboration and working together.
Yes.
And I love that part about BuildWit and how they brought the industry together. So I told you, you're not getting off the hook without giving us the dirt on this thing. We want to know the secret sauce. We're all sitting here trying to figure out, how do you find talent?
Yeah.
There you go. Take a shot.
Look, this is any other business problem, right? So now probably the one unique aspect is you're dealing with another human being in this business problem. And so we'll talk about kind of that focus. But I mean, you could think of it as a sales funnel. You can think of it as however kind of framework you want to use. But your business is probably running some style of framework for how it's getting leads or getting projects or getting anything like that. Probably a very similar approach should be required when you're talking about talent. And so we have a funnel, like the way we think about things, and we are trying to generate a certain amount of awareness at the top, right? Which you can do from a sales perspective. We use the terms, we have a service provider brand and an employer brand. So you could think of the company as a coin, right? And you kind of have two sides of the same coin. But we are focused on making sure that we're not just increasing awareness with buyers, we're increasing awareness with candidates. And so we start at the top, and what are we going to do to create awareness? Well, everybody knows where everybody spends all their attention and time these days. It's on social media. And so knowing that, how are we going to build our presence and our awareness in social media to create general awareness for our company? You could think of that as follower counts or impressions or whatever statistic you want to measure, but you need that to keep growing, right? And so knowing that is something that has to grow is really important. And so you can kind of start there, and then you might need to focus on certain skill sets. We always talk about what are the groups of individuals and the skill sets that are basically required for our business, no matter what. And how do we focus on specific awareness with those groups, and knowing what they want and being able to deliver that to them, both maybe even from a social media perspective, but much more from an opportunity perspective. So you're kind of getting to the need set of that, of kind of your core groups of people. And then lastly, everybody talks about fit, right? I've already told you, fit takes time. And so we want to be making sure that our recruiters have enough time to really do a good assessment of fit, which, when you're thinking about from a playbook perspective, might mean that you need to hire more recruiters than you might have historically wanted to hire. And so, or work with more firms that help you do recruiting than maybe you wanted to work with previously. And so there's, it's not an overly complicated framework in the sense of create awareness, match needs, and then figure out like personal kind of individual fit. But we focus on that funnel quite a bit. And those are the areas where we are putting concerted effort, energy, dollars, investment into trying to address them so that we can have the success recruiting that we need to have. Again, both for our internal needs as well as for our partners.
Thomas, that's really cool. And what I love is it's not that difficult. It's a pretty simple process. And as you were
It's
talking,
simple. You just got to do it. The key is
yeah,
you got
it's
to
not
do it, right?
easy. It's
No,
clear.
it's not easy,
It's not
but it's
easy.
straightforward.
Yeah. I was thinking about, as you were talking, I've been watching the NFL Combine here over the
Yeah,
last few days. And I was thinking
it's in
about that
Indy this year.
process is very similar, right? You've got this pipeline of talent that's been identified. And so you've created this pipeline of talent. You've done that through various ways of awareness, your marketing strategy, whatever it is. But here's all this talent that comes together. And then that's step one,
Yep.
create the pipeline. Step two, as you said, is assess the needs of the NFL teams and the skills of the players. And so you're
Exactly.
trying to pair up. All right, this is what the Philadelphia Eagles need, and this guy's
Yes.
got this skill over here. And so you're trying to do it. But then that last step, and this is the one where I think we fail and where things go wrong, is it a fit culturally? And
Yep.
that's where what you have figured out is you got to get to know the person. You got
Yep.
to get to
And
know,
it's
is that
beyond
player going to be awful in the locker room? Is that player going to be
exactly.
crazy on the weekends? And, what is that going to do to our culture? And so I was just thinking about that analogy as you were walking through your formula there, but makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense.
So the combine's in Indy, about an hour from us, and we have been watching it also. And I think there are a lot of parallels that you can start to observe. And frankly, I would argue the NFL might be the best at evaluating talent. They still have misses, though. So it's not, Tom Brady gets drafted in the 6th round and things like that, so it's not that everybody is going to bat 1,000. We should never think that, just to use another sports, kind of analogy. We're not going to bat 1,000. But if we run the right process, we will have a higher batting average than others. And that is going to give us an advantage that we will be able to go and frankly, create a business around. I will say this also about the NFL Combine. And I think when we talk about fit, there is a culture element of do they fit us? What I would also say is, does what we're going to ask them to do fit them? And this is where the NFL Combine, again, does a really good job. The Philadelphia Eagles, they're going to need to replace Jason Kelce, right? Because he just retired. He's, for those who don't know, probably a Hall of Fame center. Great football player. Also a wild person to hang out with. I would love to party with Jason Kelce. That'd be amazing.
We got to get him on the podcast.
Exactly.
Let's pull that off.
Yeah. And so when you think about, okay, what do the Eagles now need in a center? So the position, right? But Jason was really good at certain things, right? He was really good at getting low for the brotherly shove, right? Which was this kind of like 1-yard quarterback sneak. And if you watch play after play after play after play when they ran that, he would just get lower than the nose tackle lined up straight against him. And obviously he's a big guy, so you got to make sure he's got the right physical attributes and all those things. But if the Eagles want to continue to be able to run that play, the brotherly shove, they're not just evaluating for a center. They're not just evaluating for general skills of a center. They should be evaluating for who is the guy that can get the lowest, the fastest in the NFL Combine, and that is who I want to replace. Why I say that is, we can talk about an excavator operator, motor grade, it doesn't matter. It's much more than just the role. It's what specifically are we going to ask them to do, and is that a fit? And so that's a personal situation. Like, does Jason Kelce want to always be the lowest leverage guy, right? Is he motivated to do that? But there's a professional element, and there's even just like a kind of, what is the individual interested in element that are really all important. And when we talk about fit, that's what we need to be evaluating for. It's not just, hey, this person shares the same core values as us. That's important, but it also goes way beyond that.
I think it's great. I love that we went down that path and kind of made that correlation because I think it's so true, and they do a good job. But you guys have done a great job of this as well, Thomas. So I want to kind of just close this thing up by saying hats off to you and Keaton for what you've built. It's evident that you know what you're doing by the team that you've assembled. Your sales pitch should be, look at my team. That's your sales pitch.
It is a lot.
Yeah. And so hats off to you for what you've done. It's clear that you're on to something, that you have cracked the code that all of us are trying to crack out here. And so for those of you that are looking for talent and you're trying to, and maybe you don't have the resources within house to do that. Yeah. I encourage you, reach out to Thomas, reach out to Turner Staffing Group. I'm sure you guys would be willing to help. How do they find you, Thomas?
Yeah, I mean, easiest way is always social media, but we have a website. On that website, you can find all of our contact info. If anybody wants to email me directly, it's not complicated. It's just thomas@turnerstaffing.com, real difficult. So if anybody wants to email me, please feel free, and then get all my info. I would say this. I think what I don't want people to think is that Turner Staffing is like trying to push anything that it wants. If we do our job successfully, we should be a talent partner, not a talent solution. And what I mean by that is I made the comment before about nothing is a silver bullet. I think people should be trying, any company, any leader should be trying lots of strategies, because expecting a different result and doing the same thing over and over and over again is crazy, right? I think Einstein said that or something like that. It's like the definition of insanity. And so, we want to offer what we can offer and the help where we can help, but by no means do we think that is holistic and, going to solve anybody and everybody's problems.
That's a great point.
We need to be looking at any problem and trying every new way possible to go actually address it.
No, that's a great point. I'm glad you said that, because there is no easy button. Turner Staffing Group is not going to be the answer to the problem. It's going to be a partner. And you've got the companies, you've got skin in the game here too. You've got to make sure that you are doing what you need to do to be the right fit for those prospects that are coming out of that pipeline. So I'm glad you said that. It is a two-way street. There is no easy button in this game. So Thomas, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I wish I was out there with you. I'd be at the combine right now.
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard, you mentioned Tom Brady, and I don't know if you heard, he ran a faster 40 this year than he did when he was in the combine. What was that? 2000? When was he? 2006? I'm going to get the date wrong, but either way, he ran a faster 40 today, this year, than he did when he was in the combine. And for me, that just means that we are constantly improving. We can continue to improve and get better. And that's our job. That's the job of this industry and all of us that are trying to make the dirt world, the mining world, a better place, is that we can continue to grow. We can continue to get better, and we should.
Yes. Have to.
Well, Thomas, thank you so much for your time. It was great to hang out with you. Next time we'll schedule it a little bit later, and I'll have some suds for you.
Have a beer. Exactly.
There you go. Thank you for listening to this episode of Give Us the Dirt. Our podcast is powered by Hoopaugh Grading Company in Charlotte, North Carolina, and produced by Well Run Media and Marketing. Visit our website at giveusthedirtpodcast.com and subscribe to this podcast on Apple and Google so you never miss an episode.